Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. Brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, right on Long Island, and serving the entire New York City tri-state area and beyond, with the lowest prices anywhere on rock salt, snow removal products, spreaders, snow blowers, anything you need to get through this winter. The phone number is 631-756-1125, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. Well, we had a lot of clouds today, a little bit of an upper air disturbance moving through, and it has weakened as it moved eastward. Excuse me. Also, we didn't really have a whole lot of cold air this time around, although there were a couple of places, oddly enough, sometimes with these small systems you can get a surprise or two. I noticed, for example, in State College, Pennsylvania this morning, for about an hour and a half, they actually reported heavy snow, which I'm sure left an inch or two on the ground in some places. And I also had some isolated reports of a few folks getting an inch or so of the white stuff because they got into a band that had a little bit of a heavier snow shower in it. But now you can see the profile on the radar. It's a lot weaker than what it was. We do have some moisture in upstate New York, not really producing very much there. Also down into southern New England and across Pennsylvania now into southern New Jersey, we're seeing a few scattered rain showers. Now, the issue for this evening and tonight is the fact that in the colder air, we are probably going to wind up seeing the potential for some icing, which is why we have winter weather advisories up for northeastern Pennsylvania, northwest New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, in the Catskills, into southern New England down to about I-95, and then northward up into Massachusetts, further north into the upper Hudson Valley to about Albany and I-90. Excuse me. And in terms of the ice accretion here, we're talking about really not a whole lot. It's generally under 0.05 of an inch, and in some cases it's only about 1 or 200. But sometimes a little bit of a glaze is enough to cause some issues, and I think that's why the Weather Service opted for the idea of a winter weather advisory. With respect to total precip going forward, because we do have these weak events this week, they're not producing very much, but there will be a stronger setup during this weekend. So at that was where we'll see the bulk of this precip, which is on the order of 3/4 of an inch to 1.25 inches. And you see from southern New Jersey down south into Virginia, North Carolina, we're talking about 1.5 inches or more in some places. And then back in the Appalachians and going west into Tennessee and Kentucky and northern Alabama and northern Georgia, we're looking at 3 to as much as 5 inches of rain possible during the next 7 days. Still seeing some heavy rains up and down the West Coast, and of course heavy snows inland and just inland. This has been going on for weeks now. The amounts have tapered down just a little bit from what we've been seeing in prior forecasts, as the trough in the west kind of ebbs and flows here. As far as watches and warnings are concerned, winter storm warnings up in northeastern North Dakota, with blizzard warnings in the southeastern part of that state into a few counties in northwestern Minnesota, and winter storm warnings continue across Minnesota into northwestern Wisconsin. Advisories elsewhere in Wisconsin down into Illinois and over into northern Indiana. We've seen the amount of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories come down a bit out in the west. And you see the profile here in the east with regards to the winter weather advisories that are up. And they've now been extended up, by the way, into New Hampshire and into parts of Maine. So really tonight, it's just about the very, very light precip that is going to be falling. We're not looking at any big deal here. With respect to where it's snow in the northernmost areas. We're not talking really very much. It's more about whether we get some of this moisture that comes in tonight. You see it here on the NAM after about 8 or 9 o'clock, that area of freezing rain, and that moves eastward. A little bit of snow breaks out ahead of it in southern New England before it goes over to some freezing rain. And then that's done on Tuesday. looks to be mostly a quiet day. Then another one of these weak disturbances comes through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning with a weakening area of some snow in northern Pennsylvania and across southern New York, down into Connecticut. Leftover showers around, but not very much on Wednesday. And then Wednesday night, a little batch of showers comes up from the south, and then another batch maybe later in the day on Thursday before we settle in to what should be a decent day on Friday. So New Year's Eve will probably be the best day in terms of the quality of the weather this week, where we'll have more sun than anything else and no precip to worry about. Now, we mentioned the weekend, the next low, and this one is going to be stronger. We're starting to see energy from that western trough breaking eastward. We are seeing an area of rain moving northward. There is colder air up in New England trying to press down, but it's not enough really to do very much other than maybe produce a little sleet and freezing rain at the start in the Poconos, and also maybe some snow in the Catskills and down into southern New England, into Connecticut and Massachusetts. And then it'll be mostly snow as you go north and east of there. Rain for everyone else. One surge that comes through on Saturday night into Sunday morning, and then another surge of what looks like some rain here going into Sunday afternoon. Now, sometimes in these situations, you do get, this lagging energy that is going to be behind. You get that first push, and then that low goes by and it turns colder behind it. And then you have this second lagging energy that you have to wait for to finally clean house. And the models were actually showing a rather bullish setup here for next Monday with regards to rain changing to perhaps some accumulating snow. Usually in these instances, what happens is as we get closer and closer to time, the northern stream tends to overwhelm the south, so that the southern feature really doesn't amount to very much. That's kind of where I would go with this at this point. I'm not going to completely rule out the possibility that this could be something a little more robust, but 9 times out of 10, the north wins the battle with the system in the south. Either way, we are going to get a shot of cold air that's going to last for a couple of days before we go through the wash, rinse, repeat cycle all over again later on during next week. Weather in 5 brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-7565 for the best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. Just a quick look at the long range. We have been watching these teleconnections. The long range has been very frustrating, to say the least. You get these little hints of some pattern realignment, if you want to call it that. I don't even want to necessarily go as far anymore as referring to it as change. It just seems like maybe it's more of a realignment in terms of the overall pattern. And you see it for a run or two, and then it just goes back to what it's been. And just looking at the NAO, which is running up to the neutral line, and then you kind of have half the members positive, half the members negative. I don't know that it's it's constructive either way with regards to whether the NAO is positive or negative at this point. The PNA is in a very, god-awful state here for snow lovers. A negative PNA, strongly negative. In fact, going into the new year, you start to get to some divergence at the end of the first week of January, with some members moving up toward the neutral line, others staying negative. But there is a bit of a split, at least, that we're seeing in the long range. And as far as the Arctic oscillation is concerned, most of the members of this are somewhat negative. Some of it goes actually strongly negative a little after New Year's. Then it kind of trends up toward the neutral line. Some members go a little bit positive. Again, the way things have been, it's hard to imagine that you could have a pattern more hostile to weather snow in the eastern part of the United States. And I'm sort of looking at this and saying, well, let it just change. And if the teleconnections are showing pressure changes, let them play through. And here's here's looking at the upper air from today on the last run of the GFS, where you still see this troughing in the west. The big issue is really this big high sitting in the Pacific between Hawaii and the Aleutians, and that has been really just absolutely formidable, uh, ebbing and flowing in terms of strength. But every time it looks like it's weakening, it comes right back and strengthens again. You can see it here as we go through the long range. Same thing happens, and being that it's in that position with the ridge at 160 degrees west, that tends to put troughing in the western part of the United States and ridging in the along and off the East Coast. And you can see it here. This is on January 2nd. You have a big upper high sitting off the coast of Florida. Well, there are going to be some there's going to be some western energy that continues to break away eastward. If it times out with some colder air in that northern part of the jet stream that's trying to get established, then maybe you could wind up with something as we go out in the longer range on the GFS. That ridge moves up into Alaska. The upper air pattern looks a little colder. The profile in the North Atlantic has changed to one where it would definitely be, the NAO would go positive, but it would also mean more troughing in the eastern part of the United States. The PNA here, the Pacific North America Index, looks like it would be relaxing. But again, we see this for a couple of runs, and then we go back to the usual nonsense of the ridge up 160 degrees west being very strong, and the trough off the west coast and mostly flat ridging in the eastern part of the United States. So at least for now, there are maybe some subtle signs that things may change, but there's certainly nothing definitive. So as we move forward, just to let you know, the Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight will not be on. Joe's got some family things to do, and I actually have to get to bed early because I have to head for the doctors tomorrow in Atlanta to check out my medical mess that I'm in. So probably there's not going to be much in terms of posts tomorrow morning for sure. So there'll be a little bit of a gap there, but there's not going to be a whole lot of weather going on. But I'll be back tomorrow afternoon and posting up on my subscription site on patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Cioffi, and as well as the websites and elsewhere. So have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow. There will be a Joe and Joe Weather Show tomorrow night, by the way, at 7:30 Eastern Time, and I think we may have Upton, New York meteorologist Bill Goodman on the air. Keep your fingers crossed. It's tentative, but he may be coming on to talk about the rest of the winter season, which has a long way to go. Have a great night, everybody.